Start. They say it's coming. Democrats are inching closer to a vote to overhaul the nation's healthcare system. But will a victory on healthcare bring victories for them in November? What does history tell us about that? Let's bring in Tevi. He's the former Health and Human Services Deputy Secretary and a visiting senior fellow at the Hudson Institute. Good morning, Tevi.
Hi, Allie. Thanks for having me on.
Our pleasure. So it's interesting because Democrats have a long history, of championing health care and being behind it, though ironically you say it's often been political suicide for them. Let's go back to November 1991. What happened then?
Well, this was actually the great Democratic victory on health care, but it was a Senate special election to replace John Hines, who died in a plane crash. He was a Pennsylvania senator, and a little-known former Kennedy aide named Harris Wofford ran against a two-term Pennsylvania governor and former attorney general named Dick Thornburgh. Wofford won the election with the help of a strategist who was also little-known at the time named James Carville, and he said, "Hammer on health care." And Wofford hammered and hammered on health care. He held up the Constitution, and he said, if we have a right to an attorney, we have a right to a doctor, and he really pressed the issue. Wofford was all over the issue. Thornburgh really didn't know what to do with the issue and didn't respond till very late, and he lost the election. And everybody said that Wofford's victory was a sign that George Bush was weak in the '92 election, and it was correct.
But then ultimately it came back to kind of bite Wofford and James Carville. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, in 1992, Bill Clinton wins for president. It was a three-person race. He ran against George Bush and Ross Perot, and there were a lot more reasons than just health care that he won. And there was this perception that as the economy was going down, George Bush was more interested in talking to foreign leaders than he was about domestic concerns. So there are other reasons. Remember, the economy stupid was the slogan of that campaign. There are other reasons besides health care for the victory. And the Democrats interpret this and Wofford as proof that health care is their greatest issue. So they pushed it in 93, 94, kind of like we're seeing today. It's an expensive overhaul. People don't want it. They call it Hillary care. And the Democrats get spanked in the 1994 elections. The Democrats lose the House, they lose the Senate, and our friend Harris Wofford goes back to his relative obscurity.
Interesting. Then in 2000, it was President Bush that was able to use health care to his advantage. Obviously, he's not a Democrat, but it helped him win. Explain.
That's right. President Bush, or at the time Governor Bush, knew that health care was going to be a big issue. He pressed health care in the terms of a targeted reform of Medicare, a prescription drug reform that would give seniors prescription drug coverage, which they didn't have for the first 35 years of Medicare. It was a hole in the initial system. As prescription drugs became an increasingly important part of the daily regimen of care, seniors needed to have that coverage. And President Bush said, I'm going to push it. And what he did was he showed himself to be a compassionate conservative. Remember that slogan? He showed that he cared about health care, and he also increased Bob Dole's showing among seniors. I mean, he did better with seniors than Bob Dole, who actually was a senior, did in the '96 race, and so he won in 2000.
Tevi, it sounds like there are lessons here for Democrats this week being such a pivotal week, and that is that you can use health care at times to your advantage, but not necessarily as ambitious a project. Tevi from the Hudson Institute, thanks so much for joining us with this historical look back.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, he's pretty much done it all.